Orale! Bienvenidos and welcome to the Familia FFB podcast. This is your host, Jorge Martin. Familia, it's the NFL Insider Series. And we've got a little star on the side of the helmet on this one. So it's like we're going to the great state of Texas. So Familia, it's going to be fun. Shout out to my Familia in Arlington, my Familia Martin, all those Cowboys fans. This one's for you. This one's for you. I know you love. I know you love you some Cowboys, and we love it if you guys all haven't anybody watching. If you haven't liked and subscribed to Familia FFB on YouTube, please make sure to do that. Just give it that thumbs up, hit that check button, set those notifications because we're just going to keep coming back with these with these NFL insiders and so much great information for fantasy football. And also make sure you're going to underdogfantasy.com. Use that promo code Familia23, Familia 23 in Spanish if you want to do it. And you're going to get matched your first $100. First $100, you're going to get another second $100 so you can play best ball. You could start the drafts now. People were starting the drafts back in February, right after the Super Bowl, and getting ready, and everything's pointing toward the NFL season starting that first Thursday in September. So get into Underdog Fantasy. And right now, we're going to get into this show. And Familia, you know what? This has been one of our favorite guests. I mean, I always love to chop it up with a fellow Latino working sports in NFL and sports media. So RJ Ochoa, I mean, he's the manager and editor in chief at Blogging the Boys. Yeah, I love it. I love the name of his one of his podcasts, the Ocho, El Ocho, and also the SB Nation NFL show. I mean, just a fountain of information when it comes to the Cowboys. Let's welcome him in. Bienvenido, RJ Ochoa. Bienvenido. Estás en tu casa, mi amigo.
Thanks a lot, Jorge, for having me. Great to be here with you again. Fun times in the summer. This kind of the doldrums of the off season. So waiting for training camp to start next month. But until then, just kind of enjoying, things a little bit more slowly than usual. But happy to be with you here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And you know what? And I know that fire hose is coming, once training camp comes around, and it's gonna be hot and heavy all the way through. A kind of a big sea change for the Cowboys when it comes to play calling. Kellen Moore, who was there, always had a pretty high powered offense, high scoring offense. Changed to Mike McCarthy, who he called plays and won a Super Bowl. Beat a great Pittsburgh team. So, and Aaron Rodgers was always fantastic. What can we expect? From the Cowboys going into this season when it comes to play calling.
Well, it's obviously been a long time since McCarthy called plays. Hasn't called them at all through his 3 years as the Cowboys head coach, and he sat out the 2019 season. So it was all the way back in 2018, the last time that he called plays. And he's a student of the West Coast system. Obviously, that's a majority of what we saw during his time in Green Bay. We've got a decade and change worth of data to suggest that's what they're going to do. But at the NFL Combine, Mike McCarthy said that they wanted to run the ball. So that's the line that everybody's kind of hanging on to. About a week after McCarthy said that, the Cowboys traded for Brandon Cooks and then cut Zeke Elliott. And so I'm not saying that they're going to, that Dak's going to throw this ball 40 times a game. Things were a little bit too heavy in that direction at the beginning of the 2020 season, right before he got hurt. But I do think they want to air it out. I mean, I do think we're going to see kind of a standardized, they had the Tex Coast line, whatever. But they're going to spread things out. They didn't trade for Brandon Cooks and draft Deuce Vaughn and prioritize Tony Pollard to just, halfback dive over and over again. And so they want to score points. I mean, they know they have the personnel to do that. And so I think we're going to see a team that isn't challenging in that respect, but isn't afraid. I mean, I think they're going to try to, to be a little bit more vertical than they've been in the past.
And that, and I love that you're kind of reading the tea leaves that way because, and we'll get into the running backs again, but that has me actually even more optimistic than might be expected for some people when, Dak Prescott currently in underdog drafts, he's going off as the quarterback 12. So he's still considered a starter in 12-man leagues. he's had, near 5,000 yard season. He's had big TD seasons, and I mean, he's still an elite passer. I mean, is there another step he could take where, in this offense, with being more high powered?
I mean, I think people think of Dak. Some people think of him as a Russian quarterback. Really doesn't run a ton. Certainly has that capability, but doesn't do it a lot. And I think people think of him as the guy who threw 15 interceptions last year, and that's unfortunate, but not an interception-prone guy in that sense. That last year was very clearly the outlier for him. And so, I mean, QB 12, I feel like that's a great bargain. I mean, and I'm obviously biased. But there's an argument that these are the three best versions of receivers that Dak Prescott's ever had to work with. I know that 2 years ago, or a year ago, or 2 years ago rather, he had Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup. But that version of CeeDee was still a little raw. It was only his second season in the NFL. He hadn't quite found himself yet. And so, I mean, and obviously in 2020 he was a rookie. I mean, this version of CeeDee is approaching maybe 2018 Amari Cooper was special, but this is approaching the best receiver that Dak has ever had. He never really had prime Des Bryant to work with. So you've got that. You've got Brandon Cooks, obviously, and Michael Gallup, a year removed from his torn ACL, which really, really limited him last year. And so there's an argument to be made that's something really strong to work with. Obviously, Dalton Schultz is gone, but that's never really been a factor for Dak Prescott. The Cowboys do have 3 tight ends, I think, that could be a factor for him in kind of the red zone. And for the first time ever, he's got 2 running backs that are capable of helping in the passing game. That was something that they never really did with Zeke Elliott. They have Tony Pollard. They have Deuce Vaughn. We saw them incorporate Pollard that way last year. So, yeah, I mean, I can't name 11 NFL quarterbacks I want over Dak Prescott. I certainly can't name 11 that I want in a fantasy sense. I know that people want lotto tickets like Justin Fields and things. I don't know that I would qualify him as a lotto ticket, but I would take Dak ahead of, I mean, the only NFC quarterbacks I would take over him in a fantasy sense are probably Jalen Hurts for obvious reasons. Maybe Fields if you really want to bet on that. But other than that, I mean, Dak is. I mean, he's got a really, really high floor, and I like to bet on that personally.
Yeah, I was kind of going through the mental Rolodex, and I don't know who else I'd. I think there's an argument to be made for Fields, but yeah, I mean, I'm just going through the underdog list right now, and everybody seems, the quarterbacks seem to be in the AFC very much, but yeah, the ones that are ranked, the only NFC quarterbacks ranked ahead of him are Hurts and Fields. Mm-hmm. And so, but yeah, I know he doesn't run as much as he used to, which, he had a catastrophic, ankle injury, which is gonna limit anybody's mobility, but still such a force. And you talked about the receivers right off the bat. One thing that in just reading some on the addition of Brandon Cooks to this one, because CeeDee Lamb really did not have anybody to kind of help him last year. And Cooks, it seemed like he was taking a little bit more of a leadership role, kind of being the older guy, talking to guys about how to take care of themselves, take care of their bodies. And he's a guy who has something to prove. Could he be kind of like, does he, with a renewed approach, still wanting to pass the ball heavily, could he be a guy that is approaching 1,000 yards again and be really viable in fantasy?
I don't see why not. I mean, and for me, I'm hardly an expert, but I mean, for me, it's all about value, and I feel like the value on Brandon Cooks is great. I mean, for where you're drafting him, I think he certainly makes sense. And I think what Brandon Cooks offers the Cowboys, and this is a little bit more boom and bust, but I mean, they really want a deep threat. They really haven't had one. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he's not Deshaun Jackson or Will Fuller or anything like that, but Dak Prescott has had a lot of success. Once upon a time, Michael Gallup was kind of the deep threat in this offense. Then Dak got hurt, and then Michael Gallup got hurt, and he was coming back from the injury, and so things just never really aligned anymore. But Brandon Cooks offers that. I mean, he's definitely a different weapon. And you're right. I mean, Brandon almost makes me feel better about the price I have to pay for CeeDee, because you're going to get insane value for CeeDee Lamb. I don't know what wide receiver he is, probably like 8 or 9, but you said it. I mean, last year CeeDee had nobody opposite of him. I mean, it was Noah Brown for a big stretch, and then Michael Gallup coming back from the injury. And so I feel like the player whose stock is on the rise the most relative to fantasy is probably CeeDee, because he's benefited the most from what they've done over the course of the offseason.
Yeah, he's in underdog drafts. He's going off as a wide receiver 7, number 10 overall. So people are basically using him as their RB1. So and how do you not? I mean, just just a guy who can get you 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns, and just get a ton of receptions. Could there be a different way that they're using him, or maybe an additional way that they've used him that maybe they haven't in the past, or they've only touched on in the past?
We had seen them use him a lot in the slot, and that was something he did a lot at Oklahoma. And, once upon a time, the Cowboys were really just kind of relegated at Dez at X, Terrence Williams at Y, Cole Beasley in the slot. And they've really evolved, and they kind of have dudes who can do everything now. But now I think the task on CeeDee is pretty simple and pretty standard, and pretty much the same as last year. Just go be the alpha. And they've just they know that is something they can count on. It's just everything else that they really needed help with, which is why they traded for Cooks.
I love it. Yeah, I knew this one would be fun. I knew this one would be fun, especially fun for fantasy. Always great talking, chatting with you. Let's go a little bit to Tony Pollard. Zeke is gone. So Pollard is a guy who had just under 200 carries last year. I had almost 250 touches total. Was just spectacular player last year. Just kind of like in the Alvin Kamara, Austin Eckler mold. Not having as many, and I know there's been talk in the past about not wanting to overuse him on the ground, but he was so good, and now there's no Zeke. Is there kind of like a balance to using him more and not wearing him out?
I would say so. They drafted Deuce Vaughn. They had to sign Ronald Jones in free agency, and so it's not a ton of help, but I just can't ever see him even being somebody who averages 20 carries a game, maybe 20 overall touches if things are really high intensity and there's a lot of scoring happening. But they know that they need him. I mean, the big reason why they lost in the divisional round was they were down explosive playmakers, and he's one of them. He obviously got injured in that game, and so for me, again, it always comes down to value. I feel like there's a lot of people who might be willing to pay on Pollard, who might be willing to say Zeke is gone, he's going to touch the ball a million times. I just don't see it personally. I certainly don't see him being any kind of goal line weapon. The Cowboys did sign a fullback after the draft and undrafted free agency, Hunter Lupke. He's kind of this, fullback, cowboy back, extraordinaire weapon that can do it all. You can kind of see him just like plowing in 2 to 3 touchdowns. And we've seen the Cowboys down near the goal line just kind of use their tight ends there. I mean, I really would not bank on Tony Pollard. I wouldn't pay that price personally. There are some Cowboys I would totally pay for, but not Pollard, just because the running back position is so difficult to predict in general. And so the Cowboys, for now, don't seem willing to pay Tony Pollard. He's on the franchise tag, and he's coming off of an injury. There's just too many variables for me. I'm personally going to stay away.
And how are the reports on his injury?
I mean, at the beginning of the offseason, he looks like he's on track to be ready for training camp. And it does seem like that's the case. But because he is now, the guy, I think they'll be cautious with him. I doubt he plays at all in the preseason. I'm certain he'll get some vet days the way, more established players do, because he's one of those guys now. And the Cowboys will afford those opportunities to Deuce Vaughn and to wherever the case may be. But it seems like he's on track. And again, I mean, the landscape of the position is interesting. You mentioned Kamara. Is he going to get suspended? I mean, whatever. But at some point, the value does become overwhelming. But I don't know that he touches his overall fantasy point score last year. He just had so many explosive plays. I mean, there's likely going to be some regression to the mean in that sense. Plus, Brandon Cooks is there now. I mean, they have, other mouths to feed.
No, awesome. And how much fun have you had kind of retelling the Deuce Vaughn story with the draft and everything like that? I mean, that's heartwarming.
It's been fun, but as somebody whose job it is to create content about the team, it's been an incredible gift. because I mean it's the lowest of low hanging fruit, and so we're first in line to pick it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've already flown through, and I love it. This is awesome. So, do we have an idea? You mentioned multiple tight ends. Is there an idea on where that if there's going to be one that's going to rise up?
I mean, if I had to bet, I wouldn't bet, to be clear, but I mean, I would feel the least shaky about Jake Ferguson.
Hmm.
But I mean, the Cowboys have a lot of unproven names. They have Jake Ferguson, Peyton Hendershot, who were both rookies last year. They drafted Luke Schoonmaker in the second round. They obviously let Dalton Schultz walk. And Dalton Schultz has had a lot of production, over the last couple of years. But it's worth pointing out that he really didn't play as much with Dak Prescott as you would think. I mean, Dalton was drafted in 2018, and that year was a rookie. In 2019, Jason Witten unretired, so he sat behind him. In 2020, Blake Jarwin was tight end one for the Cowboys, got the big contract. He got hurt week one, but then Dak got hurt a month later. And so they really had all of 2021, Dalton and Dak, and they had last year, but Dak obviously missed 5 games. And so, it's not this like massive sample size, but there is a sample size, whereas Dak does use his tight ends a lot. It was just Dalton who was the primary beneficiary of that, as of late. And so whoever that winds up being, I think is a valuable, player worth having. But right now it is a bit of a roulette wheel. I mean, I could see the argument for Luke Schoonmaker. If you want to throw your final pick at that and kind of play a lottery ticket there, I think that there's some logic behind that. But right now, it's really difficult to ascertain who that guy is going to be. But we just keep kind of coming back to they spent the second round pick on Schoonmaker, so it kind of feels like he might have the early odds.
No, is one of them kind of considered a better block? Kind of the best blocker of the trio.
Well, we obviously don't know a lot about Schoonmaker at this level, but that was his thing at Michigan. He wasn't asked to kind of be a weapon a lot, but Ferguson I think has the edge there, and so he's probably the most complete veteran they have on the roster, which isn't really saying much. I mean, I think he had like 18 targets last year all told, so it really is kind of a fresh restart at the tight end position for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think just listening to you today, I've been doing a lot this year on my best ball drafts. I've been doing a lot, kind of like waiting on tight end. So either I get Kelsey or I just wait until and just grab like 2 or 3 tight ends. And I've been getting Ferguson's been one of the guys I grab, after the in the double digit rounds, just in case they go crazy on the offense. I mean, we talked about so many guys already. Anybody we haven't mentioned on as far as skill players that you think we need to take an eye out? I think we got everybody.
I think the only one would be Michael Gallup. I mean, depending
Mm-hmm.
on where he's going in your draft, there might be some value there. He does have at this point, he has the longest history with Dak Prescott of any of the receivers in the room. And I think there's obviously a lot of attention paid to CeeDee Lamb. There's obviously now a lot of attention paid to Brandon Cooks. I mean, I would guess that Lamb and Cooks and Pollard all go before Gallup does in any kind of standard conventional draft. I mean, if Gallup's a wide receiver 3 worth having, I think. If he gets hot, you can kind of ride a little streak there. It's worth mentioning that last year was his first year, post ACL tear, and so generally the second season after the tear is a bit more of a productive one for players. And so if you're looking for the place where nobody's checking out, Michael Gallup would be.
Yeah, and it seemed like I remember considering when he got hurt at the end of the 2021 season. It didn't. I mean, it almost felt too aggressive that he was gonna be on the field when he did. So yeah, you always like guys to not be rehabbing and actually be hopefully back to where they were. And he's still fairly young, so that's good. Awesome. The Cowboys offensive line had a revelation last year in Tyler Smith, and that just kind of gave them a boost, made them a formidable unit again. Is that unit still shaping up as a strength this season?
That's probably where the most anxiety is for fans right now. I think on paper, if this were Madden and we turned off injuries, you can really easily put together an offensive line. Um, but Terrence Steele is coming off of his own injury, and so there's a matter of is he going to be ready? And even if he is ready, where are they going to play Tyler Smith? Are they going to play Tyron Smith at left tackle and keep Tyler Smith at left guard? That was the plan a year ago. And if they do that, is Terrence still going to be right tackle? Center and right guard are pretty chalk, no matter what permutation you come up with. It's Tyler Biadasz and Zach Martin. But, they talk like they want Tyler Smith to play left tackle. Okay, so where are you going to play Tyron? Are you going to play Tyron at right tackle? What are you going to do with Terrence Steele? And they've talked about playing Terrence Steele at left guard. So there is this, and what do you do then in that world if Terrence isn't even healthy? So there's Terrence Steele's health to factor into all this, and there's Tyron's health, his impending health. Unfortunately, he hasn't played a full season since 2015, so you kind of have to play and operate as if he is going to go down at a certain point in time. And so at that point, it's, well, do we play him at right tackle? And if he goes down, what's the fill in? Do we play him at left tackle? And if he gets hurt, do we just kick Tyler over? Then who's the new left guard? So there are a number of different combinations, which is why I think a lot of people have some stress. It's easy to put the names down on a piece of paper, but and several of the combinations I think are solid and good, but we're just a little bit ways away from having a full concrete answer. They've kept that really vague, really ambiguous. They've been really uninclined to offer what they really truly want to do. The only thing they've said is that they want to play Tyler Smith at left tackle, but they have Tyron on the team, and so it's just difficult to imagine them playing Tyron anywhere other than left tackle, even though he played right tackle last year.
Right. That I thought that was odd, but I mean, some guys can pull that off. I know I've heard it's like, yeah, imagine being right-handed and then we tell you, okay, go throw a ball with your left hand, and that's what it's like to be a D lineman, an O lineman moving from one side to the other. Well, let's move to the other side of the ball. I mean, this looks like a potentially dominant defense, especially against the pass. Adding Stephon Gilmore to Trayvon Diggs. You got Micah Parsons, one of the best pass rushers, who's looking to add to him. How do they shape up as far as do they look potentially dominant against the pass, and how do they look against the run?
I mean, their run defense has kind of been their Achilles heel, despite how great they've been overall the last 2 years with Micah Parsons and Dan Quinn, and that's why they spent their first round pick on Mozzie Smith. I mean, they've talked about not wanting to get beat that way. And you look at their top rivals at the current moment in the conference. I mean, the Eagles can run the ball, the Niners can run the ball, and those are kind of the two teams they have to get through if they want to do this thing. And so, I mean, I anticipate they'll be better at running the ball, but this time a year ago, I was saying that they were undoubtedly going to regress in as far as turnovers. I mean, because that's what has happened for 100 years, and so they were the exception. They were the one. They were the outlier, and they did not regress in turnovers. In fact, they had more turnovers, and they had 1 million sacks to go along with it. And so, I mean, I don't know. I mean, do they regress twice as hard? I mean, it's difficult to predict that in a sense, but this is maybe the most talented defense from a personnel standpoint they've had in, I don't know, 15 years. And certainly the best defensive play caller they've had since Wade Phillips. And so they're right there. And you said it, they added Stephon Gilmore. They almost have too many pass rushers. I mean, they have Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence and Dorrance Armstrong and Sam Williams, and they've got a lot of defensive tackles now. They were able to bring back Leighton Vander Esch and Donovan Wilson. They have too many safeties. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys, who never paid a safety, now have 3 that a lot of people really like. And so, I mean, conventional wisdom suggests that they'll be worse because they've been really good for 2 straight years. But it's hard to see how that happens with the staff they have in place.
Yeah, especially when you're adding Gilmore, who had a really underratedly good season last year. And so, and Parsons he's one of my favorite defensive players to watch. He's just so fun. Oh, and this has been so fun, mi amigo. Well, let's close it out. Let's close it out. One of the things I love to chop it up with people who, fellow Latinos, the favorite kind of chili. So, do you like the red salsa? Do you like the green salsa? I've seen that be a heated argument.
No pun intended. You know, I think I prefer green if I'm being honest. I like red with specific things. Like I was telling you, I visited some family this week. We took a bunch of tamales, and I like red with my tamales. But
Mhm.
if I'm eating like a breakfast taco or something like that, I really do prefer the green. I think if sometimes I like when tortillas are really, I wouldn't say doughy, but like when you can feel the flour on them. And so if it's a taco like that, that's the kind of taco I want the green sauce on. I know that's a weird kind of way to put it, but I lean green in that situation. But red is fine, but green is the life for me.
Yeah, we don't you actually you took me back to my youth because when you were talking about the flour tortillas that are a little floury, that's how
Yeah,
every Sunday my abuelito, the only time he ever got behind the stove, every Sunday morning he would make homemade flour tortillas, and it just a little flour. It's just they were perfect. I've only found one other place similar, and my tia still makes them that way. But yeah, you know what? Out here, it seems out here is like red chili country. Out here in LA, because the green, I never seem to find a green that's hot enough. So that to me is the problem out here.
that's fair. We were talking about Alex Bregman. He has a salsa, but his is red. I don't know if you knew that. He has like a line
No.
of he has like a barbecue rub and things like that. And so he has a salsa, but it's red. So I know the Astros are in town. You need to go tell Bregman to find a green one and make it really hot because there's a market for that apparently.
I'll drop that because I'll drop that to him because he's on my dynasty fantasy team. So I gotta make sure. So oh man. So okay, yeah, I'll throw him a DM because I know he's active on social media. So awesome. Mi amigo, this has been fantastic. I so appreciate the time. I know it just always great to catch up with you and just love seeing all your success. You like I've told you before, you make us look good when you do great things, and it's fantastic. You touched on a little bit of what's coming up. That we talked about it's going to be a fire hose. What's coming up on Blogging the Boys and everything you got coming out.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of our last deep breath, before it all starts. And so we're working on, we usually do a positional preview on our YouTube channel in the lead up to camp, or, one video we look at quarterbacks, another video running backs, so on and so forth. Just, same sort of thing from an article standpoint all over our site. And we're just kind of, we're not used to feeling this optimistic this time of year. These are some uncharted waters for us. And so, we're trying to figure out how to regulate and balance our emotions while also enjoying the summer because, I mean, you said it, once it starts, it's nonstop until hopefully February or March. And so we're kind of bracing for that. And it's either going to be a ride we won't forget or an incredible fall. But either way, we'll have everybody covered at Blogging the Boys.
Oh, awesome, brother. Awesome. Yeah, it always seems to be extremes when it comes to the Cowboys. So, yeah, when the Cowboys have the dominant games on like on an island game, a Thursday night or Monday night football, that's anybody can talk about. So, mi amigo, thank you. And people are going to be talking about this show. So, thank you. Familia, make sure you're following our amigo RJ. He's always got great stuff, and he's got a great following. Also, want to make sure once again you're giving us a like and subscribe when you're going on YouTube. It helps us keep growing. Our numbers are jumping, and with this NFL Insider Series, keep them going if you haven't already done so. And also, just closing out one more time, go to underdogfantasy.com, use that promo code Familia23. Going to get matched up to that first $100. And you're finding me at Jorge Martin 17 on Twitter, Familia FFB everywhere else. And remember, todos somos familia. Salud.